Welcome to Have Some Style. My name is Mosha Lundström Halbert, and I am a fashion journalist and style expert. And I truly believe that what you wear is self-care. This show is going to help you really uncover, unlock, and discover, or in some cases rediscover, what it is that makes you, you, and how you can best reflect that in how you dress and how you show up in the world. So forget trends, lose the logos, burn the chinos, and break the damn rules. It's time to wear the clothes and not the other way around. I want to inspire you to figure out what makes you feel like your truest self, because authenticity is so key when it comes to style. So if that sounds like something that interests you, please go ahead and like and subscribe, ring the bell so you can be notified of future episodes of Have Some Style whenever I post them to YouTube. And we can continue on this journey together. And if you have any questions as I go or comments, it could totally spark a conversation and an idea for a future episode of Have Some Style. So please pop them below in the comments. It's more than just what you wear. It's more than just how you do your hair and makeup. It really is symbolic of how you're feeling and who you are on the inside. And it can affect so many different areas of your life when you get very clear on what your style principles are, who you are, and how you want to be perceived and control the message of the visuals that we put forth. Because let's be honest, we all are inundated with lots of messages day in, day out, and we're making very quick snap judgments based upon what we see and images and visuals. So I think it's very important that we get intentional and very strategic with how we use those resources to best reflect who we really are and what we're trying to say and where we're trying to go. Okay, are you ready to dive into today's topic? Now, this is something that I've been thinking about for a while based upon conversations that I'm having with my girlfriends. I'm 35, and being in your mid-30s is a very interesting inflection point in life because you're neither old, you're really not old, but you're not young anymore. And it's really made me consider age in a way that I hadn't before. I don't know if anyone can relate to this, but I've always been an old soul, someone who was that classic 13 going on 30 throughout my life, was really eager to grow up and be a 30-something essentially. And now that I am a 30-something woman, I'm really thinking about what that means for me, where I still have to go in life and where I've been, and how I can best embody who I want to be at this very unique age of being in my mid-30s. But even if you're a completely different age than me, I want to cover and review and discuss how being in different ages, different decades of your life is just a wonderful opportunity to go on a continued style evolution, but at the same time to be very crystal clear about what you are trying to do and maybe not do or avoid at certain ages and stages in life. So let's dive into it. I'm sure I'm going to be making a bunch of generalizations that might trigger you or give you an idea that you want to comment on. That's all great. That's all welcome. Add it below and we'll continue this conversation. So make sure you stay tuned for the end of this episode where I'll be recapping the key principles that we discussed, the key lessons I want us to glean from this, and giving us both, you and I both, a bit of style homework. Okay, so before I get into my own kind of style awakening in my mid-30s, I wanted to start with where it all began. Let's discuss teenage years. If I have any teenage viewers here right now, hello, welcome to the rest of your lives. Being a teenager is such a unique and special time of experimentation, and also quite like where I am right now in my mid-30s, you're not an adult, but you're not quite a little kid anymore. You're in this in-between stage. What I think should really define your teenage years, and just some key words I want you to keep in mind and think of how they could apply to you, is experimentation. Take in as a teenager as many cultural influences as you can. Look back in order to look forward. I know that when I was a teenager, for whatever reason, I was obsessed with the 70s. And now when I'm speaking to my teenage niece, she tells me that she has a costume party and she wants to dress up as ABBA, and we were discussing what that might entail. So I think it's really a wonderful opportunity when you're a teenager to be pulling from current pop culture, but also looking to the past and just experimenting with as many things that you can think of and combining them in really unique ways. I know when I was a teenager in the 90s, something that really influenced me was Gwen Stefani, who was in No Doubt at the time. And if you look at some of the references and some of the looks that she pulled together, you could tell that she was dressing in a way that was very reflective of her environment, the multicultures that she was surrounded by, and her love of music. So, for example, she had a boyfriend who was East Indian, who was also in her band, and became very ingratiated into his family. From that, she started experimenting with a lot of different Indian traditions when it comes to self-decoration and bindis and face decals, which really became signature to her beauty statement. She also talked a lot when it came to beauty about how growing up in Anaheim, California, the Latino culture had also influenced her there too when it came to the way that she would do her lip liner and define her brows. And then from her brothers, they were kind of pulling her into this ska music and skate culture that was very much a part of Southern California in the 90s and frankly still is. And from there, she's getting baggy pants, skater shoes, crop tops, and all these other signatures that she's amalgamating together in a very unique way. No one had ever exactly looked like this before, like Gwen Stefani on the public stage. And it really was very authentic to her. It really stood out, and it really reflected who she was and where she was at that point in her life. I think that's a great example for teenagers to think about. Like, now is the time when you are a teenager to really take as many different references and throw them together. You might look ridiculous, but chances are you'll pull it off because you are a teenager and because you are young. Society kind of gives you a little bit more leeway in that way, and you don't have sort of strict dress codes that become in some ways more and more a part of adult life. That being said, if you also, in high school, when I was a teenager, I had to wear a uniform. So when I didn't have to wear my uniform, that was an opportunity where I would just want to really push it, really wear something that was borderline a costume and just really play with color, because my uniform was very, conformed, and it was meant for, fashion to not be a distraction in the classroom, which frankly, for me, it was. I would get so distracted by what everyone was wearing before I went to a school where there was a uniform. I actually loved having a uniform because it gave me one less thing to think about, but it also really made me think when I wasn't wearing my uniform, who am I when it's not being dictated to me exactly what I should wear? And I think when you're a teenager, that's something you should really be asking yourself and just try something and be like, who am I? Am I a bit more punk rock? No, that doesn't feel right. Am I a bit more preppy? No, that doesn't feel right. Am I a bit more sporty? Yes, that feels a bit right. Whatever that is, keep trying. Don't box yourself in. Oftentimes in high schools too, there kind of is sort of cliques or groups that are very defined by their extracurricular activities or their interests. But I encourage you to not get too boxed in by those and continually just experiment and look to music, look to film, to pull some references, look to the past in order to look forward, and really just use it as a time to play, kind of throw all the spaghetti at the wall and see what sticks. Okay, now let's talk about your 20s. This is a moment in your life that is really unlike any other because you're very much coming into adulthood. A lot of times you're figuring out what your career path is in life. You are establishing yourself in a community or in a city or in a place, and you are taking on more responsibility as an adult member of society. But at the same time, you're still kind of irresponsible. You're still kind of figuring it out. There's still a lot of trial and error. So I think your 20s are a great time to, in a way, fake it till you make it. Put forth an image that maybe indicates that you have it more together than you probably do. I used to love in my 20s really putting a lot of thought into what I would wear to work every day, way more than I actually do today when I'm just a lot more sure of what I do wear and what I don't wear. When I was in my 20s, it was just like every day was an opportunity to dress up. I moved to New York City. I went to school in my early 20s there, and then I moved back in my mid 20s for work in fashion, work at a fashion retailer, and also at a fashion magazine. And I was living that New York editor life, and I needed to dress the part. That's one of the key statements here of your 20s. It's like, don't dress for the job you have, dress for the job you want. And when you get that job, dress not as the underling, dress as well, if not better, as your boss. You know what I mean? Like, use fashion as a tool to climb whatever ladder. It doesn't have to just be a corporate ladder, but really think about how you can take this unique time in your life where you are establishing yourself and really use fashion to advance that message. So that's where you might be taking and combining some more sophisticated elements if you are working in a corporate environment, or if you are needing to take on kind of an ambassadorial role or present well. Like, this is where you're pulling into your wardrobe some staple pieces, but you're probably wearing them in very unconventional ways. So for instance, when I was in my 20s, I'm wearing like a tuxedo blazer, but I'm wearing it back to a leather short with like a sky-high boot. That was a very in-fashion look at the time. But in a way, ignorance is bliss. Confidence, where I wasn't so worried about how I looked and how I might be perceived. I wasn't really conscious of my age in a way. I just was. And it gave me a lot of freedom and kind of jurisdiction to throw caution to the wind and just like play and wear things in unusual combinations. That was one of the things that I really loved about my 20s. So, maybe I would take like a really crisp collared shirt. I'm a really proper shirt maker, but then I would wear it with like this crazy paint splattered skirt. Really fun juxtapositions that showed that, I'm serious and I'm responsible, but I'm still young and youthful and have my finger on the pulse. And that really helped me in my career. But I think that those principles could really apply to anyone. Also, there's certain things that you might have more tolerance for in your 20s that you might want to think of. Like, you might feel like you are more comfortable showing skin in your 20s. Great. Go for it. Definitely. You might be able to bear really high heels better. I know that I could, and I did. Especially, I even worked specializing in footwear as a fashion editor, and I used to wear, you guys, I used to get almost, I'm not even kidding you, like a pair of shoes a day gifted to me in my job. And oftentimes, and especially was the fashion when I was in my mid-20s, it was like sky-high heels that I would put on in the morning and wear into the evening. I really don't know how. I couldn't do that now, but I had a certain tolerance for fashion and for wearing things that were a bit more uncomfortable, body conscious, sky high, daring than maybe I do now. And I think your 20s is a great opportunity to really go for it. Also, high-low really works well in your 20s because, most of us will be on limited budgets, but you will probably, if you're anything like me, I really kind of adopted this like beg, borrow, and steal mentality where I would hunt vintage and thrift stores for, I remember I found this like amazing Saint Laurent camel hair coat from like the 70s or the 80s at a thrift shop down the road from me in Chelsea, and I wore it with a pair of gold jeans, and then like a chunky knit to Paris Fashion Week one year. And it was such an unusual combination that I think only 20-something me would have come up with. The coat felt a little bit old for me, and the jeans felt a little bit flashy, but then you put those two things together and the tension that they created was really fun. Let me see if I can find a photo of that, because that was a Fashion Week look that I had a lot of fun with, and I think is a good example. I'm going to actually throw up a few of my Fashion Week looks here for you in my 20s, and you can see like a lot of it was mixing high and low. There's a look here that the famous street style photographer Tommy Ton had taken of me trying to hail a taxi or get my driver to notice me after a Fashion Week in London. Not that this was fancy at all. I did not always have a driver. I think I did after this show. And I'm wearing this Givenchy coat that I tracked down online from past seasons, with like a skirt that I got on super sale, with a sweater that was gifted to me, with a beautiful glove with Mongolian wool, aubergine glove that I promptly left in that taxi right after this photo was taken. But there's just like something about how I threw all those things together, and frankly rather haphazardly, that I love about being in your 20s, and I would encourage today. It's mix, it's match, it's clash. It's a bit more sophisticated than you are in your teenage years, but it's still very fun. Okay, and now on to your 30s, which for me, I didn't really realize I was in until I hit 35. I don't know if anyone else can relate to that. It just sort of crept up on me. But you know what I've realized lately, being in my 30s, is that I don't want to waste this decade, which is really awesome and formative. And I was talking about this with my best friend earlier today, and we were just saying that being in our 30s has really affirmed for us that we are who we are, and we really don't care what everyone thinks. We're not trying to please. We're not pandering to so many different people. We're not worried as much about what others might think. We really are self-actualized women, true women. We're not young girls anymore. And with that comes a certain confidence. But at the same time, I've also really been thinking lately about how sometimes in my 20s, like I told you, I was very eager to grow up quickly since my teenage years, frankly, or maybe even earlier, that I would wear really sophisticated things every now and then. And sometimes I would like wear them with sneakers or, you know, a leather pant or something that would mix it up a little bit, but I wouldn't wear things the same way now in my 30s that are just so truly sophisticated, because I think that that looks a lot better when you're younger or when you're older. At this mid-age stage, I think it's really great to wear things that show that you really have one foot in either side of life. Does that make sense? So you're still young, you're still modern, you're still up to date, you're still in touch with the zeitgeist, you still pay attention to trends, but you're not a slave to them. You're not changing who you are every other day. You know who you are. There's a kind of, in a way, repetition to how you dress because you're very confident and you have a signature style. At the same time, I do find, like I was saying, that there's certain pieces like that I look at now and I love, but I want to save for when I'm a bit older now, and I would have definitely worn when I was younger. Like for instance, the other day I tried on this beautiful trench coat dress. This was at Alexander McQueen actually, which cuts a mean dress. And there was something so structured and stunning, and it had this beautiful whittled waistline with like a fuller skirt, and then, you know, the double-breasted lapel and all these signatures of a trench coat, but done as a dress. And I put it on and I felt old. I felt too proper. I felt a bit like a first lady of, I don't know, a made-up country. I didn't feel like this was the best me that I could be at this exact stage in life, where I still want to show that I'm with it and have time to mature, and that I'm still evolving, but that I'm very sure of who I am and confident. So I feel like your 30s are also a really good time in life to Also, just embrace your form, your body, your silhouette. My 20s for me were a time that were really marked by a lot of insecurity in my own skin, which is, I think, why I would experiment so much and my style would change so much. In my 30s, I do feel a different level of appreciation for my body. And I know that it's not really, this is my body. I only have one. And I kind of want to celebrate it. And I don't think there's that much longer in life where I'm going to feel confident wearing things that adhere to my silhouette, that are a little bit more revealing, that highlight my waistline, my bust line, my arms, my legs. I want to celebrate that now because you know what? I exercise, I try to take really good care of myself, and I want to appreciate my body and let others appreciate it too, and not be so hard on myself all the time. And a way that I do that is to really embrace tailoring and wearing things that, like I said, really adhere to and celebrate and enhance my shape and my form. Another thing that I really love to do in my 30s that ties into this is like, if I have something that I love, I get it in every color and I wear it again and again. I love having style signatures. So one of those for me is bodysuits. Okay. After I was done with that McQueen trench dress, I ended up trying on this super sexy but chic bodysuit at McQueen that was cut out here and backless. And I have a drawer of bodysuits, okay? We all have something like this when they're in our wardrobe. We know that time and time again, these continually are the glue that holds our closet together. I even wore a bodysuit on my wedding day. I was 29 when I got married. And so I was just on the cusp of really figuring out who I was. But I knew that wearing a traditional strapless bridal ball gown was not me. And so I wore a bodysuit with a beautiful skirt. That's what I ended up getting at McQueen to wear for a special occasion. Definitely check out my video on the 20 steps to nail dressing up, where I really delve into how I approach that. But bodysuits are a thing when I see it, I'm going to love it. I'm going to find a way to wear it that's really going to work for me, be it with like a full leg trouser, be it with a skirt like this McQueen look that I put together, be it with denim in a kind of like 90s supermodel way. I love wearing bodysuits. They make me feel held in, but they also make me feel sexy. And it's something that I return to again and again. Another thing in my 30s that I've really started to do is I get very definitive about what I buy. And in my 20s, I think there was a lot of outside noise and voices because I was trying to figure out who I was, of what I would acquire and what I would wear. In my 30s, it's so crystal clear to me what is me and what isn't, that shopping is a very instinctual, natural, and quick process. Things find me, and when I see something that I know is me, I get it. But I don't just buy something for the sake of it because I've seen it on someone else, because it's so-and-so brand. No, it has to be really good quality and worth its money. It has to really align with my style and look great on me. And it also has to be something that I don't feel like I'm seeing everywhere, that I'm getting just because I want to show that I get it or that I belong or that I'm part of some fashion tribe. Those pieces often have expiration dates. I'm really wanting things that will last, but at the same time, I'm wanting things that are still a bit edgy. I don't want to go super, super classic. This isn't for me the moment where I want, a very classic Hermes Kelly bag. I want to save that for when I'm a bit older. This is the moment where I want to be, where I actually do have some disposable income and I am able to invest in fashion in a way that I wasn't in my 20s. So I want to be so intentional with how I spend my money. Emerging designers often factors into this. Like even right now, I'm wearing a top that has a print that's all created and designed by my friend who's an Icelandic designer named Halbert. She works a lot with like a bunch of Scandinavian pop stars and Bjork, etc. She's super talented, but she's not super mainstream. And In my 30s, this is a moment where I love finding new designers and supporting them. I feel like I'm a bit more of like a patron of fashion in this stage. I don't have the same appetite for like cheap and quick thrills. I'd rather buy less, but buy better. And that's really what's defined my style in my 30s. And because of that, when I do get something, I end up wearing it a million different ways because I've invested in it. And it really does drive home that message that I was saying about having a signature style and being very consistent in your message of who you are, which is, I think, something that really comes together and gels in your 30s. And also, I should say, here are some examples of different looks that I've worn in my 30s that I think really exemplify these principles that I'm speaking about here, that might provide a little bit of inspo for you as well, and that I also kind of sometimes even refer back to just for reminders of when I really felt like my best self. So those are some examples there. Okay, so let's discuss your 40s, the next phase that I have to look forward to. Wow. When I think about your 40s, one of the main things that I think becomes really important is fit. Fit is everything. When you're a teenager, you can get away with some pretty crazy, in hindsight, silhouettes and forms or lack thereof, be it, sweatpants or a baggy t-shirt or shorts that are cut to there, whatever it is. When you're in your 20s, I was always hacking away at my own clothes or wearing really weird proportions together, tucking things in the back or in the front, make it work. And then in my 30s, I became very clear about how I wanted to show up in the world, how I wanted my silhouette to appear, and fit became really important. But in your 40s, that's where you really get very clear on what you want to highlight and how critical it is to make sure that you're wearing things that are fitted to your unique proportions and fit the way that you want them to. Kind of more casual, sloppy styles, it doesn't look as good when you're in your 40s, frankly. And I think that's something that we can all really recognize. Another thing that I think is great to make sure that you keep in mind when you're in your 40s is you want to make sure that you're continually updating the basics in your wardrobe. So be it like the cut of your t-shirt or the rise and wash of your jean or the size of your lapel, that is the time in your 40s to really make sure that you're just tweaking and updating those things so that you're not stuck in another era, so that you don't kind of date yourself. You always want to make sure that you're tweaking and evolving so that you look of the moment, no matter what age you are. But I think basics are one of those areas, especially as we age, where we kind of stop paying as much attention to, and it really is important. At the same time, I'll often see people in their 30s who will look like they're in their 40s because of the way they dress, because they're wearing, extremely sophisticated, tailored, conservative clothing. And I'm not saying you have to do that in your 40s. I think when you're in your 40s, it's a great moment to really pare down and highlight what you feel are your best assets, and to really start making sure that you're investing in just the best of the best accessories, so that if you do have a bit of a uniform, it's never boring. A lot of people that I know that are in their 40s, and I think this really even applies to your 50s too, tend to wear the same thing again and again. I think that's great. But I do think that accessories are a way that you can pull in and embrace novelty and continue to experiment, even if you have found a clothing silhouette that really works for you. And I also think there's power in repetition, So if it's like a certain hat that you always wear, or a style of sunglass, or a really big earring, or, a necklace, wearing it again and again and having it be a piece of quality that really defines you, I think is a great way to really make sure that your style in your 40s is putting your best foot forward. And it's kind of it's clarified from your 30s, it's cleaner, and it has a very strong point of view. Okay, let's talk about your 50s and your 60s together here, because this is the moment in your life when I look at my mother, who's one of my greatest inspirations, where you really don't have to give a flying F what anyone thinks. You've earned the right to wear whatever you want, but whatever it is, your 50s are the time to just be fabulous. Bigger is better. Maybe that's with your jewelry. Maybe that's that you always wear like a red lip. Maybe that's that you experiment with like an outsize silhouette. But whatever it is, I think your 50s are that time to just and your 60s to just really not feel like you have to answer to anyone, and like you just know yourself, and like you will not wear anything unless it's comfortable and it's luxurious. So I love when I see 50 something and 60 something people really invest in beautiful quality materials and oftentimes dress in a way that is very tonal head to toe. Maybe that's one color, maybe that's a print head to toe, but it's always this like head to toe vision. That's what I think of when I think of your 50s and your 60s. You're a vision, and you're the most fully formed person that you're probably ever going to be, and you've lived a life, and you have a story to tell, and you're unique, and you've been banged up and bruised, and you've survived a lot of hurdles and life difficulties and ups and downs and deaths and divorces, and like that's all part of you, and that's amazing. That's phenomenal, and that should be celebrated. And I also think your 50s and your 60s are a great moment to like really embrace a haircut and a beauty message that is just pure glam and fabulousness, and then maybe you kind of simplify when it comes to the rest of your wardrobe. That would be my advice. That's where I think I'm probably going to be going in my 50s and 60s, I hope, as I look at my mother as an example, but we shall see. And then to end off, you have your 70s, and then I hope your 80s and your 90s and above. Look at Iris Apfel. I mean, she's over 100 now and still looking like such a fashion icon with so much personal style. When I look at my mother now, who is 70, what she wears is so reflective of what she does and what she believes. And I think that that's a really beautiful thing. For instance, her daily uniform is a beautiful white, crisp collared shirt with our thermacota apron over top, which signals to her that she's ready to get down and dirty in the design studio, overseeing our production and making things. And then she'll wear it with a red lip by Cheekbone Beauty, which is an amazing indigenous beauty brand. And then she'll wear these Hoka Bee sneakers that I got her that are really chunky, and chunky sneakers are cool again now, but I got them for her because they're great support for her back and her hips when she's on her feet all day. And then she really has, we have the same haircut, but it's all about her haircut, her lips, her white shirt, her apron, boom. She always looks like herself. You could dress up as her for Halloween. In fact, it's very hard for her to look like anyone but herself at this stage in life. And there's just like this exuberance to how she dresses and how she is wearing things that really serve a purpose, are comfortable, are practical, but also fun and glamorous. And I think your 70s and your 80s are a great moment for that. And to not lose that like sense of occasion. My 86-year-old father-in-law just loves nothing more than putting on like a proper, he calls it a jocket, like a tailored tweed jacket with his suede elbow patches and his pocket square and feeling put together. he loves that, and being around him and that sense of occasion that he has when it comes to dinner time or when we go out, I really love it. Like it brings out the best in everyone because he is so proper and celebratory, but still like English and eccentric with the way that he dresses in this stage of life that I just absolutely love. And I think it's something to be celebrated. Okay, so to recap what we talked about, the 3 key principles that I want you to keep in mind when it comes to dressing your age and embracing where you are in life and evolving with the times. Number 1 is make sure that you aren't prematurely aging yourself with how you dress. And number 2 is don't get stuck in an era or in a moment or in a phase in your life that worked for you. The world continues to turn and evolve, and you must as well. Be continually tweaking and updating and reconsidering your style for these different ages and stages that we embark on in life. And number 3 is your style is your story. You're not meant to look like everyone else. Don't look at J-Lo and be like, that's what I need to look like in my 50s. And equally, don't look at, Addison Rae on TikTok and think that's how I should be dressing when you're in your 40s. None of those things serve you. You are on your own unique fashion path and style story. And the way that you dress should really reflect who you are and all the experiences that you've had in life, and be this like beautiful amalgamation of that. Thank you so much for tuning into today's video. I hope what I said resonated and inspired you to be your best self at any age. And if you liked what you heard, please subscribe to this channel so that I can continue making these videos every week for you, and also ring the bell and like and comment, all of those things. I would really appreciate it. And if you want to continue this conversation, you can also find me on Instagram at Mosha Lundström and on TikTok at Friend in Fashion. And if you want to ever drop me a line in email format, my email is Mosha, M-O-S-H-A, at Thermakota, Thermakota.com. Thermakota is my family business, my sustainable shearling brand that I have with my mother and my sister, where everything from our home accessories to our outerwear is all made in Canada. So be sure to check that out as well. And if you want to see more of my work as a fashion journalist and style expert for radio, TV, and publications like Vogue, please go to my website, www.moshalundström.com. Thank you so much, and don't forget to have some style.